Welcome back to Fourth and Forever. I'm your host, Mark Sanchez. We're going to do things a little different today. I want to give the viewer and the audience a chance to see how this show's made, an inside sneak peek at how I get ready for each interview. As an NFL quarterback, I took my job very seriously, and it's all about preparation. Same thing rings true as an interviewer and a host of a show. It's all about research and development. I got to get to know Chris Long. I got to be inside of Chris Long. Not that one. Nope. Hold on. I got to get Chris Long's insides inside my brain.
Just say the line.
I got to... So this week, I'm excited to sit down with Chris Long. I got to look like Chris Long. I got to train like Chris Long.
You like that cube? That's a flag. That's a flag. Dang it.
I got to know Chris Long inside and out, frontwards and backwards, around the block, and then some.
When was Chris Long born?
March 28th, 1985.
What are Chris Long's brothers' names?
Kyle Long lived with him in Chicago when I was with the Bears. Also Howie Long, Jr., but he's the youngest.
What's Chris Long's favorite band?
No brainer. Dave Matthews Band.
Wrong. My Morning Jacket.
I'm good. Let's do it again. I gotta eat like Chris Long. Yeah, underdog, baby. Who's hungry?
Underdog! Underdog! No, underdog.
I gotta get as high or higher than Chris Long. I don't know, Chewy. What do you think Chris Long's favorite movie is? Basically, I am Chris Long.
You're not Chris Long. You can't interview yourself. Can we get a new host?
Fourth and Forever, we're back. I'm your host, Mark Sanchez. Today's guest, a two-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots and Philadelphia Eagles. He's used his platform to positively impact communities and change lives all over the globe. He's part of a family that is NFL royalty. I'm excited to welcome La Flama Blanca himself, Chris Long. Thank you, Chris.
What up, dude? Yeah, I wouldn't say we're royalty. I would say we're like,
Whoa.
we're like fringe royalty.
Go ahead. What is that?
That's like, dudes that
fringe.
Yeah, like in the feudal system, dudes that were not like kings. They were like lords. Like maybe we're like.
But you're not a serf.
I'm not a serf. No.
Okay.
But definitely not royalty. I would reserve that for like an Eli and Peyton and all that stuff, and maybe now the Bosa brothers, whose dad technically played in the league.
Yeah.
What
about a 2-on-2 cage match? You and Kyle versus the Bosa brothers. What's up? What happens?
I feel good about us, and I feel good about me. I feel good about me in general, but like the problem is that my brother is a Yeti, so that's like a bad matchup for either Bosa brother.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about football. I mean, they're tremendous players. I mean, before it's all said and done, I mean, they're already ahead of where we were net. But, like, when it comes to, like, cage match, if Kyle's not dropping down to, like, 215, I feel real good about it.
He looks good right now.
He looks good. He looks
lean.
Great. He's hitting golf balls like an addict.
I love it. Okay, so let's go. Take me way back. We're talking about WWE and wrestling. I'm sure there was some roughhousing in your household growing up. I saw an interview with your mom in our research with Scotty and I did, and she was talking about you and Kyle fighting, and then like she would try and intervene, and she didn't know like, is this like supposed to happen? Is this cool? Or are they actually upset? And then sometimes you guys, it sounded like, would be like, no, Mom, this is what brothers do to keep the fight going so you wouldn't get in trouble and then like continue to fight.
I think when it comes down to us, because there's three of us, is Kyle and Howie are the two younger, and
Right.
they're Irish twins. So they're like a year apart, and I'm 4 years older than them. I'm like 3.5 and 4.5 years older, or 3 and 4 years older. And so honestly, like me and Kyle didn't fight so much. Like we probably roughhoused a lot, but like as far as like a physical altercation where it was serious, I didn't want to bully him. And then by the time he was old enough to fight, he was my size. So it was like, yeah, maybe he was like bigger, he's like bigger than me. So
Yeah.
there have been a couple little scuffles here and there, but mostly it was him and Howie who were getting, sent home from school nonstop, and Kyle outweighs him by about 100 pounds. But Howie would fight him like he had no fear in the world. And so that was kind of, like there were ER visits. There were, hey, Howie took a picture frame to Kyle's head and cut it wide open, or Kyle pushed Howie into the door and he had to go get stitches. I mean, there were so many stitches exchanged in my family. It was crazy, but that's just any family with three brothers who aren't, going to become scientists or something intelligent. I mean, we were kind of destined to do. And my youngest brother, Howie, works in football now. He works with the Raiders. So, I mean, it was a rough household, man. But me and Kyle, it wasn't quite a truce. It was like me not being a bully. And then by the time he was bigger than me, I was like, what's the point?
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, then talk about your dad, your husband, dad, your wife, Megan. I know you guys met in college.
Yeah.
And she was a baller lacrosse player, but you got Waylon and Luke, your two kids. Now talk about how you raise these two boys. Is it a lot like you growing up? Like, do you let them roughhouse a little bit? Because I got a 3-year-old boy myself, and this pandemic, the only good thing out of it has been being able to be home.
Right.
But talk about you as a dad and a husband, and what those two boys are like.
Well, it means the world to me. The family part is a lot of the reason I got out of football. If I was a single dude and I didn't have, I wasn't married, didn't have two kids that we waited a long time to have, because I learned from my dad's experience, 13 years in the league, that you can never be fully present when you're playing. So I tried to back that up as far as I could towards retirement. And, after 11 years, I said, okay, I could go play another 4 years, maybe if I'm lucky, and be one of these guys who's 38, still making plays, and they flash your name up on Monday night. And they're like, look how old this guy is. He's still doing it. And everybody at home is like, why is he still doing it? Like, I didn't want to be that guy. And I also didn't want to be that guy when it came to missing these years. As you know, once you're retired, there's just so much more clarity, and you're so much more in touch with who you are and who you want your family to be. And, I was raised by a dad who didn't have a blueprint as far as raising kids is concerned. He bounced around a lot, didn't have the things we had, and he gave us that through football. So, there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences in how I would raise. And my dad was the best dad in the world, which was a miracle. But for me, like, I have two great parents who shaped who I am as a parent. And you know how it is, man. You learn from your parents. There's some things you really admire about your parents, and there's some things you're like, whenever I'm a parent, I'm not doing that. And there's just
See, I had this the other day. We're walking back from the beach, and DJ, my son, he's grabbing all these sticks, and he doesn't have a tantrum, but he's just kind of like, Dad, we need to get this other one. I'm like, buddy, you got 7 sticks. We don't need 8
7 sticks,
know. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I literally said something that my dad has said to me, and I almost just like felt my body and my soul just disintegrating, because I was like, oh my God, I'm my dad. And I just said, buddy, you need another stick like you need another hole in the head. Come on, let's go to the house. I just remember my dad saying that.
That was the dadism. That's definitely a dad.
Oh God, it killed me.
No, I mean,
killed me.
I mean, the thing is, like, my parents, I get this a lot. Okay, do you want your kids to play football? And
right.
I think that's one of the main things. Like, how are you going to raise your kid? With a fan asking,
right?
They just think about football. Okay. And first off, in my household growing up, it wasn't one of those things that people always have this idealistic idea of, our family was just this alpha male fest where we went out in the backyard and did 2-spot or Oklahoma, and the winner got dinner and the loser had to go sleep in like a cage outside. Like, that's how they picture a football family. Like, that's not it. And, but at the same time, my mom and dad they actually didn't want me to play football. It was one of those things that my dad saw what it did to him, his body, the mental part of it, and was like, my oldest son, Chris, is not going to play football. Now, they told me a story about when they sent me off to my first practice, and they were like, the night before, they were like, do we just tell him not to go, or do we let him go and get his lip busted because he's soft? This is what they said about me as a 9-year-old boy. He's not tough, he's soft. So they sent me to practice, and they just figured that would take care of it. Because if you deny it, then it's like forbidden fruit. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And so they sent me, and I wasn't very good at it, but I really liked it. And I don't think I'll let my kids play football until probably at least middle school. And that's not because I'm not some like CTE alarmist. I know it's real. I know that the outcomes are not always positive.
Right.
Undeniable that it's not good for you. I just think we have a long way to go in figuring out how that manifests in behavior and down the line, because there's a ton of players who also have really positive post-football lives and live them out quietly.
Correct.
You only hear about the bad news. But still, there is no point in my mind for me sending my son out as like a 6-year-old to do that shit where the helmet's bigger than the body and they're just aimlessly running into each other and they're developing their brains and they're damaging their brains and they're not getting good coaching. I'm not painting every, youth football coach with a broad brush here, but you have to be skeptical of the people who are in that. It's not even an industry, but like the guys who want to coach youth football, sometimes there's some guys that are in it for their own self-gratification. They're not teaching the right stuff. There's like no point. So the one thing I will change is I'm going to funnel my kids as hard as I can into being like intellectual and academics. And my parents tried to do that too, but football was just everywhere, man. And I think the country where it is now, there's just more consciousness about, yes, I'm holding a calculator. I have no idea why. No idea why. Okay. This is free advertising for Star, Darcy, and Star.
God, I love them.
They had no idea when they made that calculator it was going to blow up on Fourth and Forever. But
this is going viral.
Yeah. But I think we're at a different place in society where you can ask those questions fairly. And like, it's not so abnormal to not let a kid play football at 8 years old,
Right.
So that would be one big,
or at least flag, right? What about flag football?
Flag's great, athleticism, teamwork.
I agree.
Like I want my kids
and you learn the game.
Yeah, I want them to play every sport, and I played every sport growing up. But
Agreed.
I think 2 generations of this shit, I've realized that like the last thing I want to do, because I'm very aware of what it's like to grow up as somebody who has a dad who's larger than life in the sport. And I'm certainly not on that level, but I played 11 years in the league, 2-time Super Bowl champion or whatever, however people intro me, all that shit. I know that like it's hard for kids growing up in a shadow. Like that's why most kids who have high expectations crumble and, or just don't do shit. And so I don't want to put my kids in a position where they ever have to feel like they have to live up to that. So I'm trying to figure out the strategy of how I do that. But one thing for sure is we're going to push contact football a little bit. Now, that's just me right now. I got a 4 and a 1.5-year-old. So I got time.
Yeah. Okay. The last thing family-wise or, directly relating to something we share in common is we both lived with a one Kyle Long for a period of time. You a little longer than me. But my favorite Kyle Long story is going in and seeing his full like racing setup and the chair and the thing vibrates and he's got the triple screen, the whole setup. I thought he was in like a spaceship cockpit. And I was like, what is going on in here? And so I'm ordering like Uber Eats and I just check in like, do you want anything? And he's like, yeah, check this out. I got a big race. He's like, I'm going to be tied up for like 4 hours. I was like, 4 hours? He's
really
like, yeah. I was
athletes.
like, well, what if you got, I'm like, what if you got to piss? He's like, I got to hold it. It's just like, what?
That's not true. You just
I'm like,
go.
just pause the game, dude. So he's got like his race team and he's talking about setting up this trip to Talladega with these people. I don't even know if they exist. They're online. Yeah. So I'm like, hold on. You're going to just go meet up with all these random people and they're like your race team? I mean, they're your race team online, but they're not like actually changing nuts and bolts on your car. Like you don't even know these people. They could be bots, right? Like they have to check the box and, organize the pictures to make sure like they're not, cyborgs or something. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
It's a weird there's nothing against the iRacing community. It's just if you're not.
No. I just was so
No, we are
foreign to
certainly
it.
not disparaging the iRacing community, but I'm not trying to marginalize the iRacing community. But I will say,
better not.
a lot of those you better fucking not. They'll run you over with their imaginary cars. I mean, they'll just show up in your driveway and rev that shit. So I really do think actually with Kyle, if you really want to be like the big boy racers and you're sitting in your little chair that looks like a sharper image chair, like you said it vibrates, all this stuff, for 4 hours, and you really want the race experience, you got to piss yourself. Because that's what those guys do.
You gotta go hard or go home, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's scary to me that like it could be anybody. It could be some guy in Russia in his basement that half the other time is trying to sway, an American election, and the other half he's joining Kyle Long's racing team. You don't know. You go to a bar to meet up with and there's you just never know who they are. But evidently Kyle, and he's got a bunch of gaming friends, and not just like iRacing. He's met him off. I don't know. You say off the court, off the field. He's met him off the field, Mark.
Off the screen?
Off the screen.
Offline?
Offline. Many of them are good guys. So, like, he has fostered some real relationships in that setting. But, yeah, like, Kyle, I worry about his vitamin D intake, like, down in that basement. Like, he is just covered in Cheetos in the dark. It's crazy.
Quickly, we'll rip through your college career, which was, you were on the verge of potentially transferring at one point, I think, but you're this 4-star recruit. You play in the Army All-American game. You stay local and attend the University of Virginia. Then you get to this house, and this was another tidbit. I got people out there giving me info, and I need to know about the Meat Mansion. What is that?
Oh man. So basically, yeah, I was a pretty highly recruited guy, but I only got my first offer. I took it to University of Virginia because I just didn't think I was that good. So, and I was like, I better get it while it's hot. Like I wanted to go to one of these like SEC schools or a Florida State because they just were always on TV and they had the shiny pants but then I noticed like. I just didn't think I was fast enough. I didn't think I was athletic enough. So I went to Virginia and I had a great 4 years there, man. I met so many of just like you probably did at USC, which was probably even more enhanced by that huge tradition. But for us, we're not the thing about going to school at Virginia is we're working towards being a football powerhouse. I mean, when the Orange Bowl last year, Broncos really turned it around, but it's not like they don't worship you on campus. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was never a god there. You know what I mean? So it's humbling in a lot of ways, and it makes you – I think that's why Virginia has a lot of good pros. And I don't mean that you're probably scoffing and being like, where the fuck are the good pros? But there are a lot of guys –
No, Schaub. Matt Schaub is a great pro.
Well, Heath Miller, James Ferrier, DeBrickashaw Ferguson. There's another Anthony Harris now. We've got a number of guys in the league who are under the radar that always exceed kind of expectations or at least are safe bets. You know what I mean? Because they're very professional and that sort of thing. But we did have fun too. We had a lot of fucking fun. And the Meat Mansion was 8 dudes in one. We took over an entire apartment complex. We tried to live together just like y'all probably did throughout college. But we ended up 4th year at this place called the Meat Mansion. And there was just
is it because you cooked a lot of steaks or I don't get it.
There's thousands of pounds of beef in that place. Everybody knew that there was just it was like the beef capital of Charlottesville. There were just a lot of big, strong dudes there, a lot of big quote unquote meatheads in there. We're all ironically very smart guys, but people still know about the Meat Mansion. Guys 10, 11 years later have heard the legends of what went on at the Meat Mansion. I don't want to get too far into it, but
yeah, no, I get it. Let's keep that one medium rare.
Fight Club.
Did it exist? Am I really here?
Yeah, well, the first rule is you just don't talk about it. So I probably can't.
You don't talk about it.
The Meat Mansion.
So. That's awesome. Okay, then explain coming into your own. You talked about how sensitive you are to your son growing up in your shadow, but when you kind of broke into your own, hey, this isn't Howie Long's kid. This is Chris Long. I mean, you'll always be Howie Long's kid, but as a player, what was that feeling like? Because coming out of that, it's not easy. Like you said, when you have such high expectations, you started to get all this national attention. You end up going number 2 overall. So
Yeah.
what did that feel like? And yeah, take me there.
Yeah, it always adds, like, listen, for every advantage you get, which past the collegiate level, it's way less of an advantage than being a coach. I mean, there's really no advantage to being a pro football player with a dad. It's a business. And if my production wasn't good, I'd been cut in my career. And, in high school, there was always, because I went to a private school, which is one check mark against you in Virginia, because public school football is the best here. It's not like being in Jersey or something.
Oh, okay.
So, there was always he's a private school kid. Then there was he made All-State because of his dad. He got a scholarship offer because of his dad,
Sure.
which was wild, because I was looking back, although those things seep into your head because you're an impressionable young kid. It didn't make any sense.
Well, you had a breakout year at Virginia. I mean, I got your stats right here. They're awesome.
Yeah,
Let
they
me
were
see
good.
that
I mean,
stuff.
they were good. We also played in like a 3-4, so it was different.
But still,
Like,
I mean, okay, you were 10th in Heisman voting as a defensive lineman. You got a first place vote.
But here's the deal. I was always a lot of expectations, and went to Virginia to play for Al Groh, and answered some of those concerns at that level. So I was like, you proved that people in high school who were talking down to you wrong. Then at Virginia, it's, he's only seeing the field because of his pops. And then the third year, I really break out. And then my fourth year, I have 13 sacks. And, you mentioned the Heisman stuff, whatever. And then it's people saying, well, he just got drafted.
Defensive player of the year in the ACC, bro.
No, but this is the shit you have to do. So there's always going to be those voices. And my point is this, like, even when I started slow in the year, in the league, my first 2 years, I only had like 10 sacks combined. So that's like, that's panic mode. Like, people are saying bust and all that stuff. So, even I found myself at another intersection where you're like, people are doubting you anyways, or doubting, the validity of your accomplishments and that sort of thing. Like, this is another kind of fork in the road. So my third year, I started, breaking out, and the next 4 years, I had like 40 sacks, and things were great. And I felt like finally that monkey was off my back. After my third year in the league, it felt like, hey, listen, you are a guy who, for that four-year span, I haven't added it up, but over those 4 years, I would say I was probably top 5 in numbers in the league. So that solidified it for me. There was no more like, hey, it's about your dad. And people continue to say things like that. And people will always say Howie Long's son, or, hey, he'll never be as good as his dad. Hey, listen, if you had a kid tomorrow, and any of these people that are critical, that had 70 sacks in the NFL and played 11 years and retired on his own terms, like, that's a career that most people would want to have. But the reality is that when your dad had 83 and a gold jacket, you're never going to have that career. And it very rarely happens where a son exceeds the expectations of somebody who had such a great career. So I was always very realistic. It also fueled me. It made me tougher. I was dealing with criticisms and a microscope that other kids weren't. The flip side of that was I got a great dad who knows the business, who knows the game, who knows, like, when I come home from work and I'm pissed off, he saw me play. And there's no, like, when you see your dad in the parking lot and you're not sure if he knows you had a good game or not. Like, my dad was always honest with me. And I could go to him, a lot of times before I go to a position coach. And I know that's like, I never made it a thing where I would come to my position coach and be like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's just another voice. You know what I mean? And that's so valuable. And, both my parents had a lot to do with my maturation. But probably my third year in the league was when it started to go away, when I broke out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then switching gears a little bit back to the college sphere. Oh man, I mean, we're in a sad state of affairs. It looks like. It sounds like Dan Patrick was talking on Monday that the Big Ten and Pac-12 are about to announce, and potentially with the rest of the conferences, that everything's going to get shut down, fall sports.
Yeah.
It sounded like the SEC wanted to hold out and maybe poach a couple teams from potentially the Big 12 and the ACC. I mean, I could see them trying to go after a Texas, Oklahoma, Clemson, potentially like
Florida
a Notre
State,
Dame.
maybe.
Yeah, if somebody, snag a couple teams to make basically a Southeastern Super Conference and then try and continue with the season. But you got these top NFL prospects opting out. You know, the kid at Penn State, he's top D lineman in the country, just like you were coming out.
Yeah.
He says, you know, Adam Schefter just said he's signing with David Mogetta and Andre Odom at Athletes First. So, I mean, if you're in his position, would you do the same thing? Would you opt out, or are you playing?
It's really easy for me to say this now. It's easy for me to say I would opt out. When I was 23, I was invincible in my head. When I was 22 years old, going into my senior season, and like you're just, risk doesn't scare you as much, but you'd like to think that you would be more responsible. And then also at this point, with a little bit more of the ownership players are taking, like the Pac-12 guys, kind of sort of unionizing a little bit, and the push for a union in college football and players being more cognizant of the power that they wield. I think that, it's impossible for me to say what I do, but I think I would opt out. Not to mention, listen, we understand the statistics favor young, healthy athletes, but I've continued to say this, and we've talked about it a lot on my pod, is like, you're also not taking into account that you can't put a 380-pound tackle or a 350-pound tackle in the category of your standard 22-year-old. I mean, you're extrapolating a whole lot as far as the lack of risk for a young athlete, and not including these people who have, a higher risk based on BMI or that sort of thing, not to mention the coaches. And I heard somebody put it this way: if a college doesn't have a good plan for what they're going to do when somebody dies or somebody gets really sick, then maybe they shouldn't play. And as you talk that out and play it out in your head, is it worth one death? Nobody would say that out loud. You'd be hard pressed to find somebody who would say a season would be worth the death of one college football player or one college football coach, and especially the coaches.
Nobody wants to wear that.
Nobody wants to wear that, and they shouldn't. And in the NFL, it's the same thing. Well, we're talking about young, healthy guys, okay? All right, well, there's guys who are north of 30 and well over 300 pounds in the NFL. I mean, I don't know how that affects those guys. There are guys who are cancer survivors. There are guys who have underlying conditions that we don't know of the conditions yet. That's why they're called underlying, I guess. I'm no doctor. There's also coaches, and you know this, Mark, from playing the league for a long time. As coaches aren't healthy.
No.
And they don't.
No, they grind all day. They eat crappy. For the most part, this is a broad stroke, but they grind all day. They're indoors. They're outside for 2 hours a day for practice, but they're really like walking around and stressing out. They're, their stress levels are through the roof. They're just exhausted.
Bad diets. I'm not saying everybody. I mean, I've had my fair share of former player coaches, and even somebody like Dante Scar up in New England, who's a legendary coach. Like, he's 80-something. I think he kicked COVID's ass, hopefully knock on wood, better than any of the young people because he's so fucking healthy. And so you can't boil it down to any one thing, but I just think in general, like, it's sketchy. And then on top of that, you got Jim Harbaugh talking about, okay, well, these are,
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Like, we only had this many positive tests and that sort of thing. Okay, well, those numbers are based on a sample that exists in the summer in a vacuum. What about when Ann Arbor's flooded with kids again? I live in Charlottesville, okay? Charlottesville's a good place to live right now, especially in the beginning when you were really scared and we were trying to figure this thing out even more. We have a number of good hospitals around here. So much so that people from the Valley come to Charlottesville, and they're still not at capacity. What happens when the students come back in and burst the bubble? It's not the students you're as worried about. It's everybody in those college towns. And I just think that, like, especially when you're talking about unpaid players who don't have an opportunity to traditionally opt out, but the financial security of some of these NFL players, the paychecks some of them are getting, the $350 if you actually have a health condition, the lack of a union. It's just sketchy to be a college athlete thinking about this.
It's very disjointed. I think you nailed it. It's disjointed. And, in my opinion, I think to break up some of these problems and issues that have gone on for a long time and have gone unheard and unspoken for, something like this has to happen, right? Something catastrophic. And it's unfortunate that it has to be something this bad and this potentially, life-threatening. But it has to break it up, right? Because now it forces, whether it's the NCAA, if that will even exist, or these players to unionize in a sense,
Yeah.
right? Just like what the Pac-12 said, what these players are saying in the Pac-12. And, people are criticizing them for saying, hey, well, we want 50% of the revenue share. Well, it sounds astronomical because it's never been done, but that's what the NFL players want because that's your name, image, and likeness.
Right.
So you can't fault these guys for saying, hey, if we now receive that, if this is now signed into law, then what's the problem? And so
There
I
is
just
none.
feel like we're going somewhere. It's going to be good. It's just going to be a rocky road to get there, and it's going to be a new normal.
Look how important college football, and this isn't one of these things where people are happy that college football financially is being so important.
No.
But if programs do not have college football, we're going to see long-reaching implications within athletic departments we already have. And, quite frankly, when it comes to the school and the towns, I mean, if you don't have college football for a fall, you're going to see those implications. And we should see those implications to be safe.
Yeah.
But you can no longer argue or downplay the importance of a college football program. And
agreed.
That's
they support all the other programs. Not that football's better than.
That's not to say that football is better than water polo. Like that's
right.
A subjective discussion. But when it comes to supply and demand and people's demand for college football, it's not there because of the coaches. It's not there because of anything but the players. And so I think that coming out of this, you're right. There might be an opportunity, and it sucks to use the word opportunity, but that players could say, "Hey, man, listen, we are enough is enough, and this proves that we need representation, and we need to be paid because you're asking us to trot out there during a pandemic and take the field and assume all the risk." And here's another thing: is I don't fault for Trevor Lawrence for wanting to play. There might be people out there who are bashing him for disagreeing with his assessment of the virus and that sort of thing. But we want college football players to speak out. So don't get mad at the Pac-12 kids. Don't get mad at Trevor Lawrence. Right. We ask athletes to speak out all the time. This is a good discussion that we're having. It has to happen. We don't have a choice. I'm talking about the discussion.
I like that. Now you're in the NFL. We're going back to St. Louis quickly. You signed this huge contract, your second overall, pre-CBA, air bump for that one.
Yeah,
me too.
Yeah.
That was fun. Then what was your first big purchase? Anything crazy? I know you're a huge jewelry and car guy.
Definitely. Definitely, Mark. I like the VVS diamonds.
Shut up. All right. What did you get? What did you get your mom? Did you get something cool for your mom? Did you buy Kyle like a new joystick?
I got my
diamond-encrusted joystick.
I got my family a new football field for the backyard for when we get together and we just all go out there and play full contact, no helmet football. And then I got them a new cage to put the loser in. So Kyle usually goes in that cage. I didn't get. Okay, I leased a Cadillac DTS. Okay, which is like the old mobster car, but it was so smooth. So smooth. If there's a car that I could drive every day but be invisible like Kevin Bacon in Hollow Man, and so you don't know what car I'm in, that's what they should invent. A car that feels like another car but it looks completely different. I would drive a Cadillac
Tesla already did it.
the rest of my life if it would just look a little different. So I just blew the Cadillac endorsement part because I said that I just shitted on Cadillac DTS appearance. But I love that car. Okay, I leased it. I thought I was being frugal. Then I bought a Grand Marquis 1983 Mercury, and I put suicide doors on it. It was kind of a joke. It was like a beater. I got it. I put suicide doors on it. I candy painted it, and then eventually, after I damn near killed Darrell Scott from Clemson because as we're going on one of those big circular on ramps, the suicide doors just fell open, and he's hanging on by his seatbelt and I had to So that car was not safe, and I sold it, and a DARE officer bought it.
You sold it?
A DARE officer bought it.
Oh, wow.
So some DARE officer is out there with my old Grand Marquis. Those are my two car purchases. I'm more into buying land and stuff. I got a bunch of land here in Virginia, and I'm not I don't want to make myself out to be like I'm some really frugal kind of guy who's always watching his pockets. I like to spend money. You can't take it all with you. But I'm not like, I've stayed away from the Rolls Royces and shit like that.
Very good. That was an awesome story. I like that one. Do you have
Yeah,
any pictures of
Burrell
the
Scott
suicide
almost
door
died,
car?
Yeah, I could try to produce one, but I'd have to go deep in the archives. It was a midnight purple. I don't know if there's such a thing as midnight purple. It was like midnight blue / purple, depending on how the light hit it.
Okay, then I like to do this with guests. Any first impressions of me? Because the first time we actually played against each other would have been your second year preseason first game. But I don't remember if you were playing. I remember Laurinaitis was on the team.
Yeah.
But I remember my first play from that preseason game, my first play as a pro in preseason, I was going through the cadence and I dropped my mouthpiece out of my mouth and I picked it up off the ground, put it back in, hiked the ball and just chucked it down the sidelines. And David Clowney catches this deep ball. And I was just like, what the hell just happened?
Oh,
Where
you're
am
playing
I?
the Rams.
Yeah. I didn't want to say it.
No, I mean, you don't have to. I mean, like, listen, there's some things that I wouldn't joke about now at 35 because of, if I hadn't won those 2 Super Bowls, those Rams jokes would really be touchy, but I'm good. No, my first impression of you, probably like, so I was thinking about you and me because we've always known each other, and I've always, obviously loved me some Mark Sanchez, one of the best dudes out there. Everybody listening here knows that.
Appreciate it.
Also, I used to be kind of jealous sometimes. I'd be like, Mark Sanchez is like a god at USC. Like, this is the best place to be a god of all time, like in college football. Like, you just lived the dream. And I was just like, you know what? Kind of fuck this guy. But I admire him. Fuck this guy. And then he got in the league, and, I think we met a few times, and I just was like, yeah. The thing about, you could easily be a dick, having the cool life experiences you've had and playing football in LA and being a quarterback in the NFL, making deep playoff runs, all that stuff. You've balled out in the biggest cities, but you're still cool, and I just think that's cool. So to build your ego up as if you need it, I think you're a down to earth dude considering everything you've gone through. And I think another one was, I could not believe that you and Kyle were living in a house together. I mean, I was petrified. I was scared. I was scared for both of your
Scared
health.
of what?
I don't know. Just didn't seem like it was a funny marriage, dude. It was just, I worried about, I was hoping Kyle didn't go out with you at night. I hope Kyle stayed in his video game chair, and I didn't want you to eat Kyle's Cheetos by accident and get just pummeled.
Get killed.
You know what I mean? But yeah, that was
gosh.
it. I sacked you twice in my career when you were in New York.
Yeah.
I thought about that.
So there's November 18th, 2012.
You just know that off the top of your head. You didn't even have to prep for the show.
Yeah, no, I was 15 to 20, 178 yards, threw a touchdown. It's no big deal. Then you had 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. That's whatever. But we won 27-13.
Of course you did. I don't remember that part.
Yeah, there's a photo of you trying to tackle me, and obviously I was
tackle
stiff
me,
arm to
yeah.
the ground. Then I moonwalked into the end zone, backflip, spiking through my legs. Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, Mark, you're the man. Chris Long sucks." It was kind of like that. Well, that's how I told my kid it happened yesterday. I told him you're going to be on the podcast, and I was like, "Yeah, Dad kicked his ass."
Yeah, he was like, "I remember that. I saw that old shitty tape from the Edward Jones film." That field was so shitty,
man.
It caught on fire in pregame before the Steelers game. Our pyrotechnics delayed our meaningless game like a full hour. I remember standing there next to Marcus Gilbert and just inhaling rubber pellets and field turf, which probably is bad for my health. It was a total shit show in St. Louis, and it was character building. I loved that city, those fans, man, to go through what they went through and not ever give up. That's why I always loved that place. I don't love my tenure there so much because for a second there I was like, damn, I just wasted my entire career.
Did you think you were going to finish your career as a Ram? I mean, you did a lot for every city you were in, but I did watch something leading up to this interview. You dressed up as a homeless guy and slept in the back of a truck overnight in St. Louis.
We did that.
I mean, you loved it there.
Yeah.
Did you think it was going to end as a Ram, and were you freaked out when it didn't?
Well, shout out to William Hayes. He brought that homelessness exercise idea to the forefront for the St. Patrick's Center there in St. Louis. Shout out to them. They do great work. But we always try to do a lot of community service there. St. Louis is a place that could use a lot of help. And also they gave us a lot, and just as bad as we were to show up and cheer every Sunday and And you know what I liked about St. Louis is, and you never got this experience because I felt like you played in the big markets, but like,
Always, dude. I couldn't escape.
yeah, no, like it was the opposite for me. Was nobody gave a fuck, and all they cared about was, do you bust your ass on Sundays, and are you accountable? And I was always that. You could say a lot of things about me, but I was always that. And then so I had this good relationship with the city, and I wanted to retire a Ram. I really did, but they moved. So if you remember when they were moving, a detail about that year, and this was 2015, is I had just been IR 2 years in a row, and I wasn't myself, and I was trying to play hurt. Any players listening, don't do that because they're not going to take care of you. Don't play hero ball. Don't let them shoot your ankle up and go drag it around. They're going to cut your ass. So I remember the last couple months I was there, we were living in a hotel because I just knew I had heard we were moving and I was probably going to get cut, and I had no interest, even if I didn't get cut, in playing in LA at the time. Because I was just like, St. Louis feels like they're getting fucked here. And this is my NFL home. For me, when I went to New England, it was just for a ring. I mean, let's not even, you don't even have to
No, I
it's
get
not
it.
like chasing a ring in basketball. Like, you still have to earn it. Like, it's still, there's no foregone conclusion. And I played my part or whatever. But Philly was great too. Philly was just an out-of-body experience. And to sum it up, I would love to retire a St. Louis Ram. That's where I spent all my time. But there's no such thing as the St. Louis Rams anymore.
Right.
And it's the weirdest thing in the world before I got to, because I never felt like, I felt at home in New England, but I felt like a mercenary. I loved the team. I loved the coaches, but I knew what the arrangement was. I was playing a little out of scheme.
While you're talking about them, what was different about their organization, like, that's led to all their success? Something inside of, like, one of my favorite things I've seen is when Randy Moss asked Bill Belichick about the roller skating rink Halloween party.
Yeah.
And, Bill does have a sense of humor. You can tell, like, he's a real human. He's just a badass football coach.
Real human.
And when he says, like, hey, maybe, I could go to the costume party and dress up as the devil or Satan or whatever he says, it's just like, it's so self-deprecating and so funny, but so real. Like, he's in touch with reality. He's not some psychopath that you can't approach. So explain Bill Belichick the best way you can. And I don't know, what's the secret up there?
Yeah, I think the secret rhymes with Dom Grady. He's one of the secrets. Okay, the other one is Bill. Bill's always going to keep you in. Like, this is a perfect example. This year is a perfect example of how, when you look at the table and how it's set in that division and in the league, Joey Bosa said something that's really important. The most responsible team might be the one that wins this year. And the most responsible team, by virtue of geography, living in Foxborough, and also by virtue of who their head coach is and the standard that's set there, is probably still the New England Patriots. Now, in their division, I don't want to overlook Buffalo, because McDermott's got to go in there, and he's building a culture. And they're in a place where, listen, people don't, like, you're not going to be rushing to the nightclubs in Buffalo. Like, guys are going to be taking care of their shit. So Bill does something where he puts any team he puts out there is going to be competitive. They're not always going to be the greatest. Like, this year, I don't know if they win the Super Bowl or a playoff game, but they'll maximize their talent and they'll rise above everybody else when it comes to responsibility. Bill is the greatest coach of all time. He's not a robot. He just is unwavering on his standard for football. And, his standard is that you play hard, you play smart, because you can play hard and dumb there and you'll be out of there. You do your job and you're versatile. And I think that's one of the biggest things there is, I showed up there to play defensive end. We changed the scheme a couple games in because of a couple things that happened at the linebacker level. And I think maybe the master plan was to go to a little bit more of a defense that looked unlike things I had played before. But I had to, there wasn't like some talk where it's like, hey, Chris, we're going to play a 3 technique the rest of the year. Like, I'm sorry. There's just like, we need you to play 3 technique on first and second down. And it's like, okay. I haven't won a ring before. I'm going to do it. The expectation's there, and it doesn't matter, how close, how hurt your feelings are when something happens, if you're benched or if you're cut. Like, I think one thing that Bill does a great job of is keeping that distance from players just enough so when he has to, cut a guy, there's no feelings involved. He has real relationships with his players, but I think he does a good job internally and just in general of keeping that little bit of distance. And that's not because he can't have a relationship. It's because he has a standard, and that's the most important thing. It's not the relationships. The relationships happen through winning and through forging that bond, through winning Super Bowls and making deep runs. Like, he's got the sequence right, where some coaches are like, I got to make a bond by being buddy-buddy, and then we'll go win a Super Bowl. I think, there could be, a sweet spot there, but he's on the opposite end of the spectrum where it's like, we do our jobs and we go on this ride, we'll be boys forever. And I left New England because I didn't want to play that scheme, but there were no hard feelings. I was straight up about it, and Bill was straight up with me, and I'll text Bill and Bill will text back. Like, it makes no sense. Like, I've had other coaches who don't text me back, or might not check in. Like Bill will hit you up and say, like, hope you're good. Like, I appreciate that. You know what I mean? So
Well,
I
he still hasn't
respect
texted
Bill.
me. Can you give him my number so he can text me and check in?
But you guys are on the opposite end of it. But I think the biggest thing with him, though, is everybody consumes him through the media. And you just have to accept that some people are way different through the media. Just like guys that you and I know are frauds that are a certain way through the media.
Very good point.
And you're
very
like,
good point.
And the general public deifies these guys, and I'm not naming names, and there's no subliminal because there's so many to choose from. But like, you fans deify guys that are not that way and are much worse in person. It's the same way with Bill. Bill's terrible with the media. That doesn't make him a bad guy. He could be, but it have to be something else. It wouldn't be the fact that he doesn't feel like answering questions.
Right. That's a good point. Did you see his most recent Subway ad? Did you see any of those photos?
Man, I love him being a pitchman. Pitchman Bill is my favorite Bill.
What else could you see him advocating, like brand-wise? What other brand ambassadorship could you see him embracing?
Man, that's on the spot. But I was just thinking about, because I had to fix my grill earlier. I could see him doing like a Traeger.
Backyard grill?
Traeger. Just gets fucking hot. Like, he's just so he's just so nonchalant and just so dry and so over everything. Like, he could just play himself in any commercial and it would sell.
What do you think he says in the $5 footlong commercial? Just like,
fucking
do I
eat
have
it.
to say
Just fucking eat the sandwich.
just eat it.
Just eat this fucking sandwich. What do you want me to do? It's a sandwich. Eat it. He's just so matter of fact. Like, I think as a pitchman, he'd be like a method actor, and his whole life flows seamlessly into being a pitchman.
Oh, I love that.
What do you got?
That.
What do you think?
So
what do you think he'd be?
Ooh, I love the backyard thing. I still think maybe like eye drops or something, or just like or like I don't know. I was trying to think of something that's like strict, like time or like watches or
like a watch, like a
but he'd almost like criticize people like, I know you're looking at your phone, but this is called a watch.
He knows exactly. He just knows the truth about you. He knows the truth about you. He can't. And another thing is, you talk about a watch. Like, you want to be afraid. People are petrified of being late in that building. Whew.
I bet.
About the worst feeling in the NFL is being late to a meeting. In my opinion, it's the worst feeling.
Oh, agreed.
Being late in that building was just not something I was ever interested in doing. I'd set 4 alarms. I would set 4 alarms, and in the middle of the night, sometimes in camp, I would wake up and open my windows a little bit so the light would come in.
What about, did anybody's cell phone ever go off in his meeting?
Whew. You know what I used to do? Swear to God. Some guys didn't get it. Some guys didn't get it. I would turn my phone off and then take it and put it out in the hallway in the hotel. Like, I would... strength coach would be outside and I'd be like, just remind me. I lost my phone 3-4 different times this way because I'd forget it was out in the hallway in like a windowsill, because I didn't even want that motherfucker off in a Bill Belichick meeting. I didn't.
Here's what people don't understand. I'd rather buy 10 new iPhones than let that happen once in a meeting, because you're just like,
Yes.
ugh, that's horrible. It's the
Also, it
worst.
makes more sense financially that he's going to find you the max. and also, like, you don't realize this about New England. You know how, like, a lot of places are disjointed as far as this position group is in the room. This time, team meetings are short, and then we break down. In New England, the entire team is perpetually in on a Monday. So Bill would, and this is what makes him so great, and I always say this, he can coach every position as well as the position coaches and better. He walks around the field and can coach any position. So on Mondays, accountability starts with him in the big room. And what's really good about doing this, well, I'm a big proponent of this. If I were a coach, if I were nuts enough to be an NFL coach and just give my life up for that terrible grind, I would have the entire team in on Mondays and we watch the whole film, because there's nothing that makes you feel smaller than when you fuck up and the offense is in there, you know, or another position group is in there, and Bill's going to call you out. Bill will call anybody out. And so I think that's a really good thing that he does. I think he's the greatest of all time.
Did he talk down to Tom? Did he ever rip Tom?
Yeah, he ripped Jules. He ripped Tom. Like, you know, he probably ripped Hightower, and I maintain that High is the, and this is why I'm afraid for them this year, if anything, is that High's out, and they're not going to be, even with Cam, it's going to be hard for them to be some offensive juggernaut. We got used to them being that kind of thing. Those days are kind of past. They're going to have to win games on defense some, and without Dante Hightower, that's going to be a challenge. High last year was other than Gilmore, in my opinion, I could be, without thinking it through, had to be the best player on their team at this point in their career. You know, like Tom gets grandfathered in that conversation, but outside of Tom, Dante Hightower is the best fucking football player on that team, and Gilmore. I mean, Gilmore was one of the, if not the single most important signing they ever made in free agency. I know some people would say, well, there were more, but the reason they won, you know, a Super Bowl most recently was, I believe, completely predicated on them having that lockdown corner, being able to do everything they did defensively and zero up and bring pressure from everywhere. It was just like, it was a cheat code for him schematically.
I like that. He's a baller. Then your Super Bowl with them, I've seen the interview after the game. You're talking to your dad, and that was a pretty special moment. And, you know, you said a lot of things didn't have to be said at halftime, and people just kind of knew, like, okay, this is, we're going to do this one play at a time. As monotonous and as stupid as that sounds, it just happened one drive at a time, and you just start chipping away at this thing. And then it was almost like a, hey, we'll do our job every play, and just we'll see what happens, right? We just got to have one good play, one good stop. Okay, offense, go down and score a touchdown. Okay, now where are we at? And you almost like reassess as you go quickly.
Yeah.
And you continue to move on. But to me, it's like Bill's got to be hammering into your guys' heads that more games are lost than won, right? Like, we're going to do it right so many times, and they're going to screw it up, and we'll get a couple breaks. You know what I mean? Like, things will turn around. So what was that like, experiencing a Super Bowl win in such a dramatic fashion? That had to be incredible.
Well, it was incredible. For half of it, it was the worst 60 minutes of my life, because I was sitting on the bench with Rob Ninkovich, and he had told me, like, leading up, because I'd never been anywhere close. He told me in the weeks leading up, hey, man, I just want to warn you, like, I plan on winning this game, but, you know, losing a Super Bowl is the worst feeling in the world. You would rather never get to a Super Bowl than lose a Super Bowl. You'd rather go 0-16 than lose a Super Bowl. So that was in my head. And I was like, well, I got damn near had the 0-16 thing twice in St. Louis, so how much worse could it be? But still, just like the fact that I, you know, as a free agent, there were others, there always are in New England. You decide on there, you make sacrifices, you spend a year in Foxborough. It came down to, for me, Atlanta and New England in free agency. Atlanta and New England. And Dan Quinn wanted me to play Michael Bennett's role in Atlanta and do a little bit more inside rushing, because that's kind of what Mike did. And that's the reason I didn't pick Atlanta. My dad was up in a box, and he was thinking about, like, when it came down to crunch time, he told me, go play for Bill, go play for Bill. Atlanta's awesome, but go play in New England. And he thought he was the catalyst for why I made the decision. I made it on my own. But I remember my dad talking about, he's sitting up there feeling like an idiot. Now, the second half, the halftime happens, and, you know, people could be all, and I'm not going to litigate who's full of shit and who's not. Some people could be like, oh, I knew it all along. I knew. Like, you say all that if you want. But I played in St. Louis for 8 years. Like, when we're down 25 points, we're not going to be down 25 points for long. It's going to be 40 soon. Like, that's the way things go in St. Louis. So I'm not – there's no
Right.
Everything's pessimistic to me. But we just – to your point, we made the little plays, and then they made mistakes. Like, you know, if it's for Freeman mixing up a blitz protection and allowing
Yeah.
you know, Hyde to come up with that sack. Atlanta was a little bit backed up, and I want to say at this point it was maybe a 2 or 3 score game, which was tight compared to what it was. Maybe a 2 score game. Freeman messed up the blitz pickup. Me and Hyde meet at Matt, and I was kind of mad at Hyde because I was like, man, I could have been my strip sack at the Super Bowl.
That was my sack.
So the ball comes out. At this point, I don't even celebrate because we're still down so much. That was the moment where we knew we're in it. And then at the very end, they're up 8 points. So they're driving. Yeah. And Julio makes that circus catch on the sideline, toe tap. You remember that one?
Yeah.
And that's when everybody thinks, okay, we fought valiantly, but it's over now. They're in field goal range. So, like, you know, damn, we did all this. We let Freeman get out on a long run to start the drive. Then they hit this beautiful toe tap to Julio. And they're in field goal range. It's over. But then what they do? They screwed it up. They kept throwing the ball. I force a holding on Jake Matthews.
Yep.
No, first Trey Flowers gets a sack that knocks him to like the 33 or the 35. So they're at the edge of field goal range. So if they get to 11, it's kind of over. Then Jake holds me, knocks him out of field goal range. They punt it to Tom. We're down 8 points. The rest is fucking history. Like, so there were multiple moments of the game, to your point, where they made mistakes. And I feel badly for Matt Ryan because this is the thing about quarterbacks, and you know this. Like, Matt's amazing, man, and Matt put them in positions to win that game. But on his resume, he doesn't have a ring. You know, like,
I know.
And people always say if he doesn't win one, Matt was great. But Matt was up 28-3 on the fucking New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. And
he was an MVP that year, bro. He balled.
It's not Matt's fault. You know?
I know. It's just, that sucks.
No, I know. It does suck. I mean, could you imagine?
Oh,
that sticks with you.
Ugh, that's the worst,
it's
dude.
tough, dude.
Don't get me started. We almost went to the Super Bowl. I don't even want to talk about it. Next subject.
Yeah. But they say the Super Bowl is worse.
Let's see.
They say it's worse. So you're good.
But then, not only do you win that one in the most dramatic fashion in history, then you go to what you've deemed the best sports city in America.
Yeah.
On March 28th, 2017, your birthday, you signed with the Eagles as a 32-year-old.
You're a deep research guy.
So, well, we went deep. Scotty and I went deep, and we also
I like
researched.
how you're giving Scotty the credit. You could have easily been like, yeah, I was down there grinding in the stack in the library. It's like a
We did, but
USC.
we did both. We did it together. So I have a great story about my best sports city moment in Philadelphia, and it was actually on the day before my birthday. We play a Monday night game, so it's November 10th is the Monday night. Obviously, midnight, the 11th, would be my birthday, and that night in pregame warmups, Gruden's on the sidelines, and he's like, "Hey, man, where's your cheesesteak spot?" And I was just like, oh, I've actually never had a cheesesteak yet. Foles got hurt the week before. We're in like week 8 or something. Yeah. And I go in against the Texans. We win against the Texans. Now we're playing at home on Monday night. And so he's asked me about cheesesteaks. And I'm like, dude, I've never even had one yet. He's like, well, you got to get on that, man. And I'm like, all right, if we win, I'll go get a cheesesteak, whatever. Well, not only did we win, we, blew out the Panthers. We had this awesome night. It was so fun.
Bunch of sacks, right?
Yeah, dude, we had a bunch of sacks. Yeah, against Cam. And then, we're making plays all over the field, balls all over the yard. We throw it a ton. It was awesome. It was just like football was fun again, and I had gone through this crappy shoulder injury. I leave New York on kind of crappy terms, and I'm just like, you're in that mode of like, I don't know, is this going to be ever what it was? And for that one night, that city completely embraced me, and it was one of the best feelings I've ever had on a football field and then after a game. Because we go, I try Geno's, I try Pat's, fans in the city are like giving me French fries and cheesesteaks to try theirs, and we're taking pictures.
Mark, I want you to have my cheese fries. All right. Yeah, what's up, Mark? Have a cheese fries. Mark, I told you. No, I promise. Yes! I got something with you real quick.
Only if I can take it.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna cry.
For Snapchat? You've been Snapchatting your friends? You didn't even tell me.
Yo, Mark
Sanchez. Can you grab my pocket? Let's go. Let's go. Mark Sanchez.
Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna go grab a sandwich. I'll come back.
All right, thanks. Sanchez. He ate my cheese fries. He ate my cheese fries. Go.
Appreciate y'all's support. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Let me try it. Let me try one.
You're gonna have the best in the city, man.
All right, let's go. What's up, guys? I'm doing good. Great game. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Thanks. Good game. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Where are we?
Sit over there. Yeah.
You got it? Yeah. Oh, I can sit right there?
Just for important people.
Dang. Well, I'll sit on the floor then. Hey, here's the dude, right?
That's him.
I want to thank him for being here tonight. I appreciate your support.
It was just like, wow, what an amazing city. Like, if we could just win a Super Bowl here, this would be incredible. Like, you know, I love Southern California. That's where I'm from. But this was something special, you know? And I felt that. And it was just, you know, oozing out of the fans that they love this team and this Eagles brand and all that. So for people who haven't experienced it, what makes it so special there in Philly? Because there is like a Philly versus the world mentality. But what was it for you, that moment, other than the Super Bowl, but like, was it the dog mask stuff? Was it, what was it that made it the best sports city in America?
You know what I love about it, and you know this from playing there, is all the sports complexes are in the city, in South Philly.
There's something to that.
Which is, there's something to that. Most sports complexes, for fans listening, are just out in the middle of nowhere, or because of real estate, you know, cheap farmland, that sort of thing. And I just love the fact that Philly is very traditional. It's Eastern Seaboard. It's not quite New York as far as like the crawling, you know, traffic and, you know, just gridlocked. I could never play in New York. I don't know how you did it. But like, it's a big city, and downtown is beautiful, and the people all love sports. All the sports are right downtown, and it's tough. It's a gritty place. Shout out to mascot Gritty in the NHL. Like, it's and for me, my brand of ball was, I'm gonna bust my ass and I'm gonna give you everything I got. And also the fact of where I was in my career, I was older, and you know, like, it was obvious this was the last little hoorah for me, whether it was this year, a couple more years, I was talking about retirement. So I think people just appreciated that I gave it everything I had. And so that's why I feel good about my time there. Now, as a player, the flip side of that coin is, if you're on a bad team, I'm sure you don't say Philly is the best sports city in the history of sports. Because it can be, they're fucking honest with you. And I appreciate that, you know, but I hit the jackpot. Me, Torrey Smith, LeGarrette Blount, you know, Pat Robinson, the guys that came in as free agents before that year, we are the luckiest people in football. We made good decisions. You know, leaving New England to go to Philly like me and LG did, people are calling you crazy. We were picked to be a bottom quarter team. And just that entire ride, man, is the type of place, and you know this, like, you go through the gate into the stadium, you talk to the team cops, you see a janitor, you see somebody making a cheesesteak. Everybody just gives you that nod like, let's fucking do this.
Let's do this. I was just going to say that.
Everybody's on the same team. I got chills right now thinking about it. I'll always remember pulling up after Carson got hurt, because Carson was having an MVP year, and we just knocked off the Rams.
Incredible.
We were the favorite, and then all of a sudden nobody gave us a shot. So I'm pulling up to practice the next week, and there's this guy who picks up trash on the side of the road, and I'm stopped at a light. And he recognizes me through the car window. He doesn't come up to the window to tap it or anything, because Philly people are pretty respectful. But he just starts freaking out and throwing the trash in the air and pumping his chest. And he's like, let's fucking go. Let's do this. We're still in it, baby. Like, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, and I roll out the window and I give him like a shout out and whatever. And I just see him, like, as we pull off, and everybody's just so, like, everybody's ready to run through that tunnel with you. They're not fair weather. Yeah. It's not like a place that for 20 years you haven't experienced losing before. These guys were perpetually like a bad luck place when it comes to football. And they had like all these near misses with Donovan and getting in. You know, they were a good team, but they were like snake bits. So to be the team that came together and like and did it finally in the fashion we did it was like a movie. And I'm not even like exaggerating. They should make a movie about that year. And Nick
Sylvester
Foles, I don't know,
Stallone should
we probably
direct
have
it.
to get an adult film actor to play Nick Foles, but we could. It would be a great movie.
Nick with his big old heart.
Well, we don't know
he's got
that
a
for
big
sure,
heart.
but the rumor
big
has
heart.
it. Good for him. You know, like.
Oh my goodness,
No,
that was
the
great.
signs
But then
at the Super Bowl parade for Nick were unbelievable. I can't even share them on the. But the dog mask thing, dude, like the fact that we were just sitting in the training room one day and Lane and I were just like, oh, you know, they think we're underdogs. Let's be stupid and get a mask. And then it ends up on the inside of the Super Bowl ring, like a little dog head. On the inside of the Super Bowl ring.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Eternity, bro.
That's way
Like,
cool.
so I'm just so thankful I ended up there, and like it was such a close-knit team in a different way than New England. You know, New England was real tight.
But you're playing against New England.
Yeah.
And you just went through that crazy comeback with New England.
Yeah.
Now you're trading blows with these guys. I mean, in some way, when you're playing against New England like that, you got to think like, are you telling the guys on the sidelines like, dude, we're not done till this game's over. Like they're not done until they're actually dead. Like when the whistle blows for the fourth quarter and it's over, keep playing just in case because they can come back. You know what I mean? Like, were you thinking like that, or were you telling guys?
Yeah, it's like a zombie movie or something. Like you just don't like, you know, headshots or whatever. I don't know if you like you got to finish this thing. Like it's So we knew that coming in because we were big underdogs and nobody thought we would win. So it was just like we were so frenzied to get after them, and it wasn't personal, but it was just like, you know, what else can we do? We just beat the Vikings. We took the Vikings behind the woodshed, and people were so afraid of the Vikings, bro. Like, we kicked their ass, and they were like a damn good football team who I respect greatly. But there was just nobody was coming to Link that night and beating us, and it just felt like 2 weeks later for people to discount us that much, we were never going to relax, and we couldn't. You know, all those times we got a little bit of distance between New England and us. They closed it quickly. And as soon as they came out of halftime, the adjustments and Gronk, and it got real scary to be on defense because we could not get a stop. You know, people are always like joking about beating Tom Brady and beating the Patriots. I always say, I didn't beat Tom Brady. Nick Foles beat Tom Brady, you know, like, and really neither quarterback deserved to lose that day. I mean, here I am again.
Oh my God. They both played out of their head. It was awesome.
Yeah. But like the defenses, on New England's side, I really do believe that this is the reason they've invested so much in defense going forward was Bill decided if I ever get back in one of these things, I'm not losing because of defense. And he was right about it.
Right.
And on the other side of it, we just had to get one stop. And it just happened so late in the game was they were 7-man protecting the entire game and chipping out. And just, you know, if they were worried about anything on defense, it's probably our D-line, to be honest. I mean, like Fletch and Brandon and DB and me, like our front four. But they chipped out. And at the end, you know, when they couldn't chip anymore and they had to get guys out in routes to get going, that's when BG made his play. And, you know, we just needed to make that one play. It was so big. And even after that, they weren't dead. They had 95 yards to go. And we were not relaxed in that situation. Came down to a Hail Mary.
That's awesome. Yeah, no doubt. That's awesome. Explain, what about the parades in both cities? Because here's my perspective, not knowing what a Super Bowl parade's like.
Yeah.
But in New England, like they've done it so many times. In Philly, you get Kelsey's speech, like his outfit, the whole thing. I feel like parade versus parade, rank them and, you know, give me your thoughts on them.
Well, here are the pros and cons. I always ranked the Eagles Super Bowl in that year ahead of the New England year, and that's no hard feelings against New England. It was just so rare and special. But the parades, both cities have some checks in the boxes, and I'll tell you why. New England, tight streets, okay? Very old, tight streets. Now, Philly, the streets are old too, but you start in South Philly, and as you know, there's like a lot of it's just wider than New England. And so one thing that Boston was really cool about was it was like a freezing rain day. It was like kind of slushing, like snowing a little bit. And it was just perfect Boston parade stuff. You know, like it was just,
Right.
it just fit. And that being my first one, like also the duck boats were really awesome. That was great. We had a blast. It was just so fun. And both parades, I got so popped at the parades, I didn't go out at night. So like, you know, like once I got back and packed the dip, it was over for both those parades. But the Philly parade, you know, you could feel that energy of this is the first time. And there was also where it ended was so cool because we ended at the Rocky Steps. So it's just like for anybody that hates Philly, just that has to be just hell watching that thing because it was like, and they even ended the motherfucker on the Rocky Steps, just twist the knife. And the costumes, that sort of thing. We had a good time with it, man. I'm trying to think of a memory. I ended up in the back of a cop car, but it wasn't because I did anything bad. A cop gave us a ride back to our place, and the memories are pretty foggy, but both of those days were the best days of my football careers. The parades are better than the games in a lot of ways.
Instagram at Fourth and Forever. YouTube.com/Fourth and Forever. Like, share, comment, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Hook smash! Oh, hook smash. All right, part 2 coming your way.